Worldcon. They say strange things and they do strange things at the Worldcon. The Worldcon. I'll never go there anymore. At least till next year. Hello? Okay.
And who are you, please? What is Filk?
Okay, Filk is science fiction folk music. Science fiction folk, Filk, see? Other folks say it was a result of a typo on an early program, but hey, the story that was delivered sounds better. Filk music started off as something that was done only in private parties between consenting adults, but it gradually moved out of room parties into the conventions themselves. About 15 years ago, I realized that Filk had come of age when I was invited to sing at a room party and walked in and found a whole rack of professional-style microphones and microphone booms and recorders, and I knew Filk music has become big time. Well, it started out simply as amusement at parties, also because an awful lot of professional science fiction writers were also poets. For example, well, it took a while from parties that room parties that specialized in Filk music to trying to get rooms in conventions. Some conventions were more congenial than others. I recall some places where we wound up singing in cargo elevators while the hotel detectives chased us from floor to floor. A man is walking on the moon with his eyes turned up toward space, and the bright blue world that watches him reflected on his face. The whole world sees the hero there and the module crew also, but few can see the guiding team that guards him from below. Step by step, the longest march can be won, can be won. Many stones can form an arch, singly none, singly none. And together what we will can be accomplished still. Many drops can turn a mill, singly none, singly none. All right. Edit. Will you come with me at 6 o'clock? Knock me down with a feather to give the waitresses a shock. Filkers dining together. All we get is toast for unsung heroes. Filkers dining together. Now, guess what was the title of the song? I was 16. I was a science fiction fan since I was a little kid.
Why?
4, I believe it was. I had my tonsils out, and I went going to the hospital and suffering from post-operative pain.
Why?
It was beautiful. It was fascinating. It was the future. Remember, this was just after World War II, when we were looking to a very grim future. And anything which showed us a future we could believe in, I wanted to see. That, I think, is what made Star Trek such a big hit. It was the first piece of public art in 30 years to show us a future we could believe in.
Why?
It gives us hope in an age when there isn't much.
But isn't...
The reason the scientists are not well liked today is because too many of them whore for governments. We all know what governments want them to do. Make bigger weapons, better spy devices, even using the Human Genome Project in hopes of trying to breed bigger, stronger, stupider, more obedient soldiers. It's not the tool, it's the use to which it's put. Science can also give us cures for cancer, hell, cures for death itself. Space, whole new frontier.
So you see...
I wouldn't be able to see right now if it hadn't been for medical developments over the last 20 years. By giving it a kind of a map. Do you realize it was science fiction writers who first postulated things like the atom bomb? I believe it was Jules Verne who came up with the idea of the photocopying machine. Photography was brand new in his day, but he took it further than anybody else could see. H.G. Wells was a historian first, and quite a good one, and then he took history into the future and gave us some fascinating ideas of what to avoid. And, Robert Heinlein is notorious for some of the things he thought up. Star Trek and the and the communicator. How is that different from the modern radio phone? Hello, give me 26944. Beam me up, Scotty. Imagination is desperately necessary for a scientist, and if the scientists themselves don't have it, the science fiction writers will give it to them. Looky there, looky there. Oh, wow. Well, in a society which does not reward brains or creativity, except for obeying your orders, yes, sir, that does make us misfits. Yes, I mean, we have an educational system that tends to stomp the imagination out of people. Those who insist on having one are going to be stubborn little oddballs. And betcha. I think it was Robert Heinlein who said that the two most valuable segments of society are the criminal and the artistic, because only they, by questioning society's values, can force it to change. Okay, those who are rewarded for society for being just what they are not about to change, are they? Therefore, a society made of them is not about to change either. Evolution starts with mutations. We are the mutations of society. And if we're successful, society will follow us. Thank you. Thank you, George Lucas. Utopia versus dystopia. The one warns, the other offers a way out. The carrot and the stick. Don't do that. Do this. Hey. Without warnings, you won't get people to avoid walking over a precipice. And without offering a direction, you can't get people to back off from the precipice and go in a different direction. What I have seen is corporations trying to form a new aristocracy to replace the old feudal aristocracy. Exactly what the founding fathers were trying to get away from. Then again, how could they have foreseen what would take its place? And I foresee that there will be, yes sir, there already is rebellion against the corporate conglomerates. Example, in the publishing world, most of the published media in the United States right now is controlled by three big, super colossal corporations. I believe they're Disney Corp, Time Life Warner, and Sony Simon & Schuster. And these control about 90% of the magazines, books, and newspapers that you see. Where's the alternative? The internet, which is uncensored, uncontrolled, unstoppable, much as governments hate the idea. I see the possibility for mortality if the corporations don't stomp on it. I can see the future, the total elimination of disease, the elimination of aging. Right now, it's possible to eliminate poverty. It's just that there's too many political and economic forces arrayed against it. Right now, it's possible. There are rocket designs which NASA turns up its nose at, which could take us to Mars. And all this is being blocked by the government and corporate aristocracy. And it'll be an interesting next century to see which side wins. Whether we go to the stars or wind up back under the heel of Lord Hoo-Ha and, who was it? I think it was Alfred Bester who predicted, Lord Ford, Lady Schick, and a real inherited aristocracy of corporate giants. And, of course, the rebellion going underneath it. Certainly the myths of that had been created by Star Trek, Star Wars, The Road Warrior, other public media, Rocky Jones, Space Cadet. I think these are becoming archetypes for the modern mythology. I can see the computer becoming so cheap that the average beggar on the street can have a wrist computer to complete with modem to try to call his welfare office with. Think how, for how many centuries, the ability to make fire was expensive, difficult, dangerous, and had to be hoarded by the tribe. Now matches are marginal, things that can give away. I think computers will reach that point too, at least the lower levels of computing. Frankenstein's monster was a nobleman's bastard child who turned on him. Remember that she was writing at a time when the revolutions were shaking much of Europe. And the idea of beware what you create thoughtlessly, because it can turn on you and get its revenge. has been carried into the modern age as we've seen more revolutions and seen that lesson driven home again and again. You'd think people would learn. You take responsibility for what you create. And thou shalt not grind the face of the poor, thou shalt not stomp upon the already poor and powerless, the worm will turn. As the science fiction fandom culture, that's a whole different phenomenon. This is the first subculture in history which has been founded not on economics or location or religion, but on literature, on literacy, on artistic ideas. This is an artistic subculture. As you can tell just by going down to the art show or looking through the dealers and all the books, acres of books. It's a culture of literate, intelligent, and creative and imaginative people. And society marginalizes such people at its peril. I've seen science. I can't begin to think of all the subcultures that touch on science fiction fandom. So we have a communication space that's much wider than just simply the people who come to Worldcon. Given a rough estimate, I'd say there's at least 2 million science fiction fans in the country. We know there's at least 1 million because that's how many letters Roddenberry received when it looked as if Star Trek was going to be canceled, and that was 30 years ago. But for the other connections we've got, I'd say it burgeons more into 5 or 10 million. That is a sizable chunk of society. That's a sizable number of voters, especially when you consider that these are intelligent, literate people. And heaven knows how many of them become computer operators or computer designers, or even go into government. We're everywhere. How do you know that the person in the next cubicle isn't one of us? From there. Oh, beware the gamers. We are legion. We're everywhere. Do you know how many starving writers and artists have managed to make a living out of writing game scenarios and doing game graphics? Gaming is a big subculture which overlaps again with science fiction fandom. Yes, be careful when your kid buys and brings home and starts playing a computer game that's science fiction oriented. Be aware. He might become literate. He might become interested in reading books. He might even become a scientist.
Look, the problem is when this whole thing began, I didn't have a chance to set up. You see a logbook?
Oh, the Worldcon. They say strange things and they do strange things at the Worldcon. The Worldcon. I'll never go there anymore, not till next year. That's the 10, 20 years ago, you would have said, let's put this away. If you said you were an anarchist, the audience would run away screaming. Nowadays, they just shrug and say, so what? Progress. Rolling?
Rolling. Rolling, yes.
Oh, the Worldcon. They say strange things and they do strange things at the Worldcon. The Worldcon. I'll never go there anymore, at least till next year. Hello?
It's Filk.
Okay, Filk is science fiction folk music. Science fiction folk, Filk, see? Other folks say it was a result of a typo on an early program, but the story that was delivered sounds better. Filk music started off as something that was done only in private parties between consenting adults, but it gradually moved out of room parties into the conventions themselves. Well, it started out simply as amusement at parties, also because an awful lot of professional science fiction writers were also poets. Well, it took a while from parties that room parties that specialized in Filk music to trying to get rooms in conventions. Some conventions were more congenial than others. I recall some places where we wound up singing in cargo elevators while the hotel detectives chased us from floor to floor. And others where we had to go out and sing in the lobby in order to force the hotel to give us a room to sing in. But nowadays it's a lot more congenial. There's a whole 3 rooms dedicated to Filk singing down in the one of the levels in this hotel. And a man is walking on the moon with his eyes turned up towards space, and the bright blue world that watches him reflected on his face. The whole world sees the hero there and the module crew also, but few can see the guiding team that guards him from below. Step by step, the longest march can be won, can be won. Many stones can form an arch, singly none, singly none. And together what we will can be accomplished still. Many drops can turn a mill, singly none, singly none. I got it wrong. All right. Edit, edit. Will you come with me at 6 o'clock? Knock me down with a feather to give the waitresses a shock. Filkers dining together. We've wound our way through an all-night sing. Knock me down with a feather. It's long past time to eat something. Filkers dining together. Our seat request is mad forsooth. Knock me down with a feather. 11 people in one booth. Filkers dining together. May I have your orders, please? Knock me down with a feather. We beg for coffee on our knees. Filkers dining together. But when our order finally shows, knock me down with a feather, all we get is toast for unsung heroes. Filkers